closed session. And are we ready to commence IT?
All set.
Following closed session, we reconvene the February 11, 2021 meeting of the Palm Desert City Council, successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan.
Here.
Councilmember Nestandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla. I didn't hear you, but I see that you're here. And Mayor Kelly.
Here.
All present.
And Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I am honored. Please say together, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our invocation or words of inspiration tonight will be offered by Councilmember Karina Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I got my mute issue resolved. Thank you. Last week, Councilmember Jonathan shared moving words of our first National Youth Poet Laureate. Today, I begin with the words of Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She says, I think it's important to move people beyond just dreaming and into doing. They have to be able to see that they are just like them and you made it. In these moments of worry, we must force ourselves to keep our dreams alive. The pandemic is impacting everyone, and maybe our dreams are on hold, but they cannot expire. History teaches us that nothing lasts forever, and in time we will discuss the pandemic in the past tense. When we look back, will we be proud that we opened our pantries and our wallets when our neighbors were struggling? Will we be proud that we kept our distance from our loved ones in an effort to keep them healthy and safe from the virus? Will we be proud that we listened to doctors and got vaccinated and helped protect those who were medically unable to receive the vaccine? Will we be proud that we resisted the urge to travel, and some families found presents under the tree that cannot be delivered to heaven? Our world has changed forever, and we must persevere to grow stronger together. And while we're still in the pandemic, we see hope on the horizon, but we must all remember that the greatest tool to surviving and navigating the pandemic is love. Love thy neighbor, wear a mask, love thy neighbor, and keep your distance. And keeping your neighbor alive is the best way to keep everyone's dreams alive. A healthy economy needs a healthy workforce. And I also find inspiration in the words of Harriet Tubman, who said, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember that you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. If Harriet Tubman can find hope and strength to become one of this nation's heroes in the middle of one of the darkest times in our history, so can Palm Desert find strength to keep one another healthy as we continue to navigate the pandemic together. We look to women like Harriet Tubman for strength and courage that they showed and ultimately changed this nation's history. We look to women like Justice Sotomayor and Harriet Tubman for wisdom and guidance and strength. We as individuals must be the stewards of hope coming together as a city. We must reach into our hearts and show love for our neighbors, and we must open our minds and accept the vaccines when they become available to us. We look to women like Marie Curie, the brilliant scientist who said, nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. And that resonates with me because now is the time that we must get to know our neighbors that don't look like us, that don't go to our churches, or maybe don't attend at all. If we are to move forward in unity, we must keep the reverence and spirit of Black History Month beyond February and Hispanic history beyond the fall. We must truly celebrate diversity and actively stand against racism, fascism, and hate, fostering love, patience, and tolerance in their place. Thank you.
And thank you. Mr. City Attorney, is there any action to report from closed session?
Yes, there is. The City Council approved unanimously a settlement with the Belmont Estates Homeowners Association in the amount of $50,000, $297.52, and specified that it be funded by an appropriation from unallocated general funds. That's all I have.
Thank you. And we have a presentation this evening from Joe Wallace as chair of Priority 1 Coachella Valley to update us by special request. So welcome, Mr. Wallace. Always happy to see you.
Now you can see me.
Yes.
Hello, I'm very pleased to be here today. It was just last February that the Coachella Valley hosted the consulting group that was commissioned by the state of California to advise them on whether to build another campus of the California State University and to evaluate 5 locations as candidates for such a campus. CVEP, the City of Palm Desert, and representatives of the entire region convened for the visit and made our best presentation to advance our need for a comprehensive 4-year university at the Cook Street location of the CSUSB Palm Desert campus. We fared well in the consultant study, and it appears that of the 5 that were considered, we are one of the top 2. Later in 2020, Priority 1 Coachella Valley was formed specifically to pursue the prize of a California State University right here in the city of Palm Desert. It has been my privilege to serve as the chairman of Priority 1 Coachella Valley, and I thank the city of Palm Desert and the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau for funding our efforts. We now have 7 directors and have formed an advisory board that includes Lawrence Pelosi, who is advising us on a pro bono basis and making connections that he has that will further our efforts. One of our earliest decisions was to hire Strategies 360 to further the goals in Sacramento with the state of California and with our governor, Gavin Newsom. They're with us today, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Greg Hayes and Gina Grabeau of Strategies 360, and they will make a presentation on our progress so far. After their presentation, Greg and Gina will be available for questions, and hopefully this day goes well. And I'm quite pleased with what's gone on in the last 7 months. So Greg, Gina, I turn it over to you.
Joe, thanks so much. Really, Mayor and Council, an honor to be here with you this evening. It's really been a pleasure to partner with your council members who serve on Priority 1 Coachella Valley and with the other board members. And not only that, the sort of extended family that has and is coming aboard Priority 1 Coachella Valley. It's a very exciting endeavor to be working on something of this magnitude. It's been very apparent both from the study that was conducted and our interactions with the community, what a great home for the next CSU campus your community would be, and what a great need it would serve in the greater Coachella Valley and beyond in terms of providing higher education opportunities for not only young people, but people of all ages who would avail themselves of the higher education opportunity. And it's, one thing that is very interesting to me, in California, which is such a melting pot, we get to come across so many people who are newer, not only just to our state, but our country. And the higher education system has provided a great way for people to, elevate themselves and their families and create opportunity. So there really aren't many things, that I personally could work on that would be as rewarding. So we look forward to our presentation tonight, sharing what we've learned and how we can continue to build with you on obtaining that goal. Gina, do you want to make any opening comments, please?
No, I echo Greg's remarks. Thrilled to be with all of you, and I will screen share the presentation now. Can you all see this?
It's just coming on. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And so one of the first things we did, you'll see here with this logo, is create an identity that we thought you both reflected the community and the aspirational nature of what we're doing, just as a note on that first slide. And then on the next slide, a little executive summary. One of the first things that we did on behalf of Priority 1 Coachella Valley was identify a few dozen people who we knew were instrumental to or tangentially related to a potential decision around this. We wanted to sort of do an assessment of where things stood. And we learned a few key things. One, Governor Newsom does favor the building of a new campus, and that's important. Obviously has a big impact on that, appointed a lot of the trustees that serve on the CSU board, and has a heavy influence on the state budget and what happens in the legislative process. So that's a positive. CSU, at least the former chancellor, we learned at that time, was not as enamored with the building of a new campus. And there's a few factors that went into that, but as you know, we have a new chancellor now. And the system kind of took its cues from that chancellor. We have the good fortune of, on our team, having a woman who works in our Los Angeles office alongside Gina, who served on the CSU Board of Trustees and has been able to provide us some great insights into some of the thinking over there, not only with the fellow trustees, but with some of the staff. So to build or not to not build for sure was not sort of universally shared by all. Secondly, this happens. The study kind of identified a number of leading cities, if you will, and the legislators from those districts took some time to try to rally their colleagues around advancing their campuses. And one of the things that we learned is that Stockton had a pretty early edge in terms of consideration. And this wasn't objectively based. It came about because they have the natural advantage of proximity to Sacramento. So it's the same media market, for example. And so folks in this market who may have an impact on this decision are just more exposed and aware of Stockton and its need than they are of the Coachella Valley. And then Mayor Tubbs, who lost re-election in November, and Governor Newsom sort of knew each other, and we know that he had been in his ear about that community. What we further learned was that joining Stockton in terms of areas that have an advantage are Palm Desert, and that certainly was aided by the study that you saw that indicated the advantages. It's an odd way to put it, but the fact that there's pretty substantial need, if you will. So when you're looking at the community from that standpoint, Palm Desert had an objective, measurable edge over Stockton. And what's important to note is that, and it's not just Riverside County we're talking about. These campuses draw from large distances. And so it's not just San Joaquin versus Riverside County. It's really sort of a pretty broad region. And absolutely, when you look at that broad region, and the trustees, or pardon me, the study, found that there's just a greater broad need down where you were located. And then we've done some further intelligence gathering as time has passed, and the current governor's budget does not include funding for a new CSU campus. It's unclear where it stands on his agenda. We know he favors it, but he clearly has a few things on his immediate agenda. If you pay attention at all to the news headlines. So he's got a bit of a handful at the moment. But I'll say one thing that is absolutely in our favor is campuses are an economic and jobs development investment. So we do know that is still important to them. So there was a recent legislative budget hearing where there was some talk that indicated, Stockton kind of has, still has that sort of emotional, pole position, if you will. And I'd like to think all the intelligence we gathered, plus the information we just heard in this public hearing, really emphasizes that we are on the right track with our next steps that I'm excited Gina will be talking about in just a moment. A couple of last points is that our meetings with budget staff, legislative staff, administrative staff, et cetera, has told us that a entirely new brick and mortar campus, similar to ones that have been built in the last 25 years or just up until 25 years ago, is probably not likely. We have many technology innovations. Plus we, have lessons learned from this pandemic that mean the next campus is likely to be somewhat of a hybrid campus. And we know that a lot of people are contemplating that. And one of the things that we're suggesting to Priority One CV is that we get ahead of it and, come up with a model for California. And, if we're the ones offering the solution, we're likely the ones to be receiving, that decision. So that is part of our strategy. And then lastly, the new CSU chancellor is still kind of finding his way. He's not asserted himself in terms of a position on the next campus yet. So we want to impact that. So I'll turn it over to Gina.
All right, thanks, Greg. So we put together an original outreach and mobilization plan. Obviously, local mobilization is really critical to success and to our efforts. Really, the idea is to mobilize stakeholders and the community locally, which will ultimately convey that message to decision makers in Sacramento, specifically the capital. We have a lot of local enthusiasm and some really great project benefits that are incredibly compelling. Obviously, as we all know, it's shovel ready, which is a great aspect and really beneficial for the Coachella Valley. As Greg had mentioned, though, we must head off some budgetary concerns by really proactively outlining this sort of campus of the future, which I will dive into a little bit more in a minute. So we put together a draft website, which is up and running. We will shortly demo that for you. Ideally, we're planning to launch this later in February, and we'll launch this along with some targeted digital advocacy efforts. We've been working a lot recently on putting together an advisory committee to really reflect the Coachella Valley and all the important voices within the Coachella Valley. So our advisory committee will be consisting of local elected officials, individuals from the medical space, agriculture, hospitality, business, fundraising, education, and labor as well. We're hoping to kick off the first meeting of the advisory committee later this month. So there are some additional efforts in terms of fundraising efforts that we may be looking to need some funding for. One is to potentially hire an academic to research and put together a white paper on what a hybrid campus of the future might look like. This would be really important for us to do this alongside the state legislature as we push this advocacy effort. Additionally, we might need some additional fundraising efforts to extend the outreach campaign beyond what we have envisioned at the current moment. In terms of who would fund these efforts, potentially we could hire a third-party fundraiser. Additionally, hoping to get some buy-in from local cities within the Coachella Valley. Obviously, having a very cohesive advocacy effort that really includes everyone within the Coachella Valley and surrounding cities is really critical to our endeavor. And we're continuing to keep the Priority One Coachella Valley Board up to date on all of our outreach efforts and doing presentations to the board at all of their meetings so that they're consistently kept in the loop, and we'll do the same with the advisory committee. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Brian Stead-Stroud, and he will run through the draft website so all of you can see it.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Hello, City Council. Can you see my screen in the website? Perfect. All right. So the main function of this website is to activate residents throughout the Coachella Valley. Through that kind of key feature is the sign our petition. So as you know, as you can see, it's the centerpiece. We also have it up here. The point is for all of our digital marketing, all of our outreach is going to be funneling people to this button, essentially, that goes to a prepared letter that will be targeting some very key decision makers in Sacramento that we want to influence and show that there is an swell of support for this project. So I'm going to run through some of the website, but that's kind of the big focal point. It's push everyone to sign our petition, and when you sign the petition, it will generate a letter to the electeds. We get your email address, and we can then use those email addresses to further activate people in support of this project down the line for either committee hearings, for additional letter writing campaigns, if we wanted to call elected officials with them. So this is a kind of an exciting tool that we've used to not only, it's not just a website, think of this as kind of a grassroots amplifier. So on this website, besides the sign the petition, we have a pathway to college. This is one part of it that we're actually pretty proud of. You click on this, and this is going to be stories. As of right now, we have 5. We're going to be building on this, but it's going to be why a school is important for the Coachella Valley, what a continuing education means. So
just to chime in really quickly, Brian, on that. So right now we have the voices of a lot of local high school residents. We're pulling in some additional voices. We're also going to pull in some individuals from an economic perspective, some local business folks in the desert, as well as potentially some individuals in the education space, all focusing on, you know, why an independent 4-year CSU university would be critical for residents of the Coachella Valley.
Perfect, thank you. So when we go back out, so you have the pathway to college. Another focal point will be building equity and equality. This is a quick snapshot of this page. And this is all just additional information that builds upon, you know, why this school is going to be important. And then an economic engine. I think a lot of people will appreciate the one-time impacts, but also the annual impacts that will be reverberating throughout the Coachella Valley. And then we have just basic information about the project. Let me see who we are. And then another key feature will be the share your story. This is going to be building on the pathway. This is going to be for people to chime in, send us messages, send us information, or even tell their story, in which, based on some of these people that reach out and tell us about it, we can reach back out to them, communicate with them, get a picture of them, and put them on the pathway to college. So we view this component to be pretty interactive, with us regularly updating the pathway to college program. And then, of course, we're continuing to do email solicitation. The more data, the more information we get from people, the more times we can hit them up for additional activation down the line. So, like I said, the main component of this website is kind of be grassroots activation. It's a funnel to influence elected officials and then continually influence them through the course of this campaign. And I will stop sharing my screen now.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. I just want to emphasize a couple of points, which is the notion of being able to tell the community story and amplifying it in Sacramento is imperative. We have to overcome a few years advantage Stockton has. And so you'll notice those stories and the petition are a huge part of it, because we not only want to make a volume of noise, we also want to make some poignant noise that reflects the study showing the need in the community. And those personal stories are really a critical part of that.
Does that conclude what you are intending to present? I'm sure my colleagues will have some questions.
Yeah, I'll toss it back to Joe. Some wrap remarks.
I think the presentation speaks for itself. I think our need for a 4-year university to serve our youth speaks for itself. We're all here and we'll address any questions that you have to the best of our ability. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Gina. And thank you, Brian.
Well, of course, we are the choir. to whom you are preaching. I won't break out in song to prove that. Let me take my colleagues' questions first. I have a couple, but Councilmember Quintanilla, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a phenomenal presentation. I'm very excited to see that a presentation or something that I recall being in elementary school at Della Lindley and hearing the rumblings of one day we will have a 4-year campus. And that was in, I think, 1991, I believe. So this has been a community project that's been invested for so long in the planning and now the concept, and now it's getting elevated into a whole new incarnation. And it's very exciting to see the growth. My question is, in addition to these very poignant stories of what the impact will be on an individual level, what is being done to separate the idea that because it's Palm Desert in Palm Springs backyard, the need is not there? When I was working for Cal State San Bernardino's nursing program, the recession had hit and there was funding that was being cut. And I went to present to OSHPA, the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development, and they were floored to hear about the inequity in the Coachella Valley because they hear proximity, it's near Riverside. Okay, Riverside's kind of an area, it's in Riverside County, without understanding the magnitude of the fact that this would go all the way to cover students out to Blythe and further down to the border. So what active campaign will there be to have that messaging change? They were floored to hear that. I think at the time in 2012, the Coachella Valley had physician access ratios comparable to Uganda. So I know there's been a lot of change, but these are the kinds of very drastic, poignant distinctions that need to be made when they're used to hearing Stockton, and Stockton sounds like a great idea. It's just down the street, it's very familiar. What can be done to secure the dire need to be an economic diversity, to be a way to diversify away from tourism? The need is obviously slightly biased here, where we have a much greater need to be able to distinguish ourselves from Stockton's advantage.
Thank you. You see, we are the choir.
Gina, do you want to take that?
Sure. So first of all, the third-party study that was conducted, it did highlight the fact that the Coachella Valley has the most inequities of all of the locations studied, which is also obviously very valuable for the Coachella Valley and for our initiative and our purposes. We're definitely weaving in the idea to highlight the inequities in the Valley throughout the campaign, like not only through the voices, but obviously as well in our advocacy efforts, the local touches that we'll do, and then the touches we'll do in Sacramento with stakeholders there. So that's definitely a critical component of our campaign. And I agree. So I didn't share at the outset, but I'm from the Coachella Valley. I grew up in the Coachella Valley. So this is definitely a really important project for me personally, near and dear to my heart. And I definitely have seen the inequities, as we all have. And so it's definitely going to play a major role in our advocacy efforts.
And I think I can testify too, as one of the people involved when the consultants came, that their eyes visibly widened as their understanding of what the Coachella Valley is and who the Coachella Valley is deepened. So that was clearly successful. Other questions? Let me get Councilmember Nastandi and then Councilmember Jonathan.
Okay, again, thank you for the presentation. And I have a couple of questions. One, what are the advantages that our competition has in terms of us being behind the 8 ball here? And also, can you tell me what a hybrid campus would look like, or what does it mean? And then to tag on, I know that the Cal State system is millions and millions in debt. And how realistic is it for any campus to get chosen based upon the budget shortfalls?
So there's 3 things there. I think I got them. So the good news, bad news is, the good news is they don't have sort of objective advantages. They have emotional advantages, and that can carry a heavy sway in Sacramento. And again, it's a lot of it has to do with their proximity here and just awareness. And Stockton, city of Stockton has received lots of headlines over the last couple of decades that are not favorable, right? So then there's sort of this wellspring of sympathy. And the opportunity that creates, though, is that if we can match sort of the emotional heft of their proximity with this campaign where we're, making noise, telling stories, all the communities are standing up and saying, this is important to us for these reasons, we can sort of neutralize that component of their advantage. Then it allows us to get into the more objective discussion about why Palm Desert has so many advantages. I mean, if they were to make a decision today, you could be up and running in a relatively short order in terms of getting a campus going as you're continuing to build out, whereas Stockton would be years away. They don't have the facilities that you haven't donated land like you have, don't have CEQA approvals that they're shovel ready. So we need to neutralize them on sort of the emotional playing field, so then we can naturally talk about our advantages. Sorry, my dog decided to come say hello. I'm talking. Hello. Then secondly, was the budget question.
Hybrid campus. What does hybrid campus?
So it's a very good question. And there's been a number of sort of publicly available studies on what a hybrid campus could look like. And we don't quite know yet, but what it would be a combination of in-person and distance learning. But the really important component of that is a truly virtual campus, which some of those are available, right? You can sign up to get a 4-year degree right now and never set foot anywhere. That really negates part of what we're trying to accomplish here for the Coachella Valley, which is having a physical presence that can serve as a beacon of opportunity and hope, and for individuals and families to point to say, I'm attached to that. Plus, there's also economic development advantages to having at least some component of an in-person campus. So the advantage of a hybrid campus is you can deliver the overall education a little bit more efficiently at a lower upfront cap cost because you don't have to build 100% of the service facilities in person. It can be sort of a combination. And so that's essentially, what a hybrid campus looks like. Would be that combination of in-person plus distance learning. And since you're serving such a wide geography, there could be advantages to that, for some people who want to access it, but might have transportation limitations. And then lastly, on the budget question, this is really important to note because you cannot, cut and starve your way, out of economic challenges. Investments must be made. And this governor, it's one of the principles he holds. He wants to be able to build constructive things. In fact, one of the things that he was quoted as saying to somebody we spoke to is he is trying to close a couple of the prisons that we have, trying to limit the number of people we have incarcerated and build a campus as sort of a physical manifestation of a transition in how to view opportunities for young people. So even in a constricted budget environment, they can find opportunities. There will be another higher ed bond on the ballot in the coming years, which would be advantageous. But they certainly have to make investments in the future, and we're working very hard to make sure this is one of the top priorities.
Great. Councilmember Jonathan.
Mayor, and I wanted to offer a little bit of perspective, and if you have questions and you want to go before me, that's fine.
I did have a quick question, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick. Did you have a question at this point? My question, and it piggybacks on what was just discussed, so thank you for the opportunity, does pertain to a hybrid education. Because my impression is complements of necessity. The folks at our current Palm Desert campus are in the midst of inventing that. their capacity for online education, being ahead of their peers, has led to a real upsurge in enrollment because they were capable, they were ready to accommodate more online education. So the notion of fundraising to hire an academic to put together a proposal caught my attention. Might it be preferable to make sure that those on our current Palm Desert campus are heavily involved in sharing what they've learned and being a part of what's presented to further display that we've already created a nucleus of expertise that's an asset to be built upon? It's another example of why the state won't have to build from scratch in Palm Desert, because the building blocks are there. What are your thoughts about that?
Gosh, if we could involve them, that's a win-win. So I'm all in favor.
So my encouragement would be to definitely be in conversation with the dean and whomever he would connect you with to accomplish that.
Yeah, and we've talked to Joe a little bit about connecting with, I think it's Dr. Zhu, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
And we're heading in that direction anyway, but it sounds like a wonderful idea to just wrap this into that.
Great.
Yeah, so I've spoken with him about this in a different context. He would like to do a virtual campus. He made that known to me before there was a P1CV and before we even knew there was a consultant hired to advise us. Dr. Zhu is friends with the person who established the virtual campus at Southern New Hampshire University, which has about 5,000 on-campus students and about 95,000 off-campus students. So studying that very successful model, I think, would be important for us to put together something that would attract students literally from all over the state. Because if you can make this happen, we don't have to have a school of computer science right here with all the things that and the costs that go with it. You can take computer science classes from CSU Northridge, from Hayward, from anywhere. So it opens up an entire curriculum to our students, and the ones who are comfortable with it can do it from home or from a library. The ones who need to go to a campus can do that. And Jake knows the people out there. He's invited me to go visit it with him at some point, and maybe some of you will want to tag along.
Great. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. So this obviously has turned into more of a study session than a brief update. So I will be brief and try to bring this to a conclusion because we do have other business. Although this is obviously important. To the last point about a hybrid campus, the recent, for the past year, school closures have emphasized how important and valuable emotionally and mentally in-person learning is. So hybrid is just that, hybrid, because one of the benefits of going to college, of course, is the college experience outside the classroom. And I won't delve into that, but you all know what I mean if you've been to college. So we are not losing sight of that. And of course, we don't want to create a 100% virtual campus because then we're talking ourselves out of a Palm Desert campus. And these are issues that the board has addressed. So let me give just a little bit of perspective. Mayor Pro Tem Jan Harnick and I, along with the position of the Palm Desert City Manager, are on that 7-member board, and the rest of the board is populated by individuals that we feel have unique contributions that they can make to our success. Councilmember Quintanilla mentioned that this started back in '91. Some of us were there as part of that effort, starting with those trailers on the COD campus. And we naively, for 30 years, over a quarter of a century, expected that the contract that we have with CSU would mean that we would be the next standalone independent campus. And that is an expectation that we had rather naively, perhaps. Last year or so, we learned that the decision as who goes next would be made in Sacramento. So to use the current term, we pivoted and said, okay, our efforts cannot be just to expand the campus or just to play nice. We need to be smart and sophisticated. And so we focused our effort on the decision-making process in Sacramento. I think the Palm Desert very wisely invested $150,000 in that effort. We formed the 501c4 organization, and here we are. The advisory board was mentioned. That is critical because we know, as so many people came together when the consultants doing their questions and surveys and meetings in the city of Coachella at the library, when so many people came together, the widespread support was palpable. It was obvious and it was energetic. And that is important, not just to make this effort successful, but to demonstrate to Sacramento that there is widespread support that is very diversified and comes from every sector of the Coachella Valley. And so I'm pleased to say that pretty much virtually everybody we've invited has said yes. And if anyone has suggestions for more, we would welcome them. And we hope that part of what will come out of that is that people, not necessarily those on the advisory board, which include all 9 cities, the tribes, the county, but we hope that we will have more widespread funding for Priority 1 CV, because it's important, not only because we need the money to move forward, but because of the need to demonstrate that the support is widespread. So that's just a little bit of background, a little bit of perspective, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So I just wanted to say you sing to the choir because they'll keep singing. So Greg talked about the poignant noise. The original poignant noise was brought to that study by CVEP, and they must be recognized for Joe Wallace and his team for all they did with bringing those analytics and those reports that told the story of Coachella Valley and our needs so very well. And they really deserve the accolades and appreciation. And we have to make sure that we let you know that how much we give you some love for that, because boy, does that make a big difference and really got us off on the right foot. It's important to remember that CSU campus from the get-go has been it's been a hybrid campus because many of those students were there and they were studying virtually. So we had the hybrid there, and to both what Sabby Jonathan was saying, yeah, we want the personal, we need the connectivity, we need human connection. But at the same time, we understand that there are costs that will prohibit us having that completely. So we're a little getting out of that starting gate. We were a little ahead of the game with the little bit of virtual campus we already have. So we've got a head start on that. We just need to build on it. And the other thing I want to say thank you, because we're talking about how great these committees are and this board are, and we have some people who are contributing and they're wonderful influencers. But also one of our staff members, Wayne Olson at the City of Palm Desert, has done a tremendous amount to move this forward and to connect everybody. So I think that needs to be said, and we'll keep making poignant noise. Thank you. I love that phrase, Greg. And we're going to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can see, we could talk about this all night, but I'm going to draw this to a close by thanking Joe and Greg and Gina and Brian and Mayor Pro Tem Harnick and Councilmember Jonathan for your work on Priority 1 CV, and Wayne Olson as well. So thank you so much.
On behalf of my colleagues, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
We have reached the juncture for public comments on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on issues that are not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes per person. because the Brown Act does not allow the City Council, successor agency, and Housing Authority boards to take action on items not on the agenda, members may briefly respond or instead refer the matter to staff for action, report, or a recommendation at a future meeting. This means that we can't engage you in conversation the way we just did with our presenters, but we're always available. All of us are available and have flexible schedules to meet your availability and can be reached through City Hall. We're going to use the raised hand function in Zoom to discover if anyone wishes to be heard on a non-agenda item, and Ms. Sanchez will explain that.
Mayor Kelly, we're using that new function in the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Very good.
It wasn't announced in the agenda until the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
But there is someone in attendance that wishes to speak under public comments.
And who would that be?
That would be Mr. Van Tanner. You have 3 minutes.
Welcome, Mr. Tanner.
You're muted.
You press Control A, Mr. Tanner. That may help you out. Control and A.
Give him a second.
How are we doing now?
Great. We can
Okay.
hear.
Thank you again, Mayor, City Council, for the opportunity to discuss with you reasons to move to a 5-district voting system for the 2022 election cycle. Mayor Kelly responded to a request of mine, providing the costs that have been paid to date and those estimates exclusive of the settlement of the final costs that plaintiff's attorneys will be receiving from the city regarding the lawsuit seeking 5-district voting. For the record, the litigation and consultants fees at this point have been approximately $350,000. This does not include the money that will be paid to the plaintiff's attorneys. The estimated cost to convert to ranked choice voting from the mayor would be approximately, again, $350,000. This estimate for the actual conversion does not include the $100,000 that will be used to educate the constituents. With software updates in the following years, can be as much as $70,000. Looking at these numbers, it certainly appears that eliminating the RCV and adopting 5 districts to the city could be saving thousands of dollars over the next couple of years. This is in a time when there are budget issues. I would think that this would be the best for the residents of Palm Desert. I would urge you all to look at this option very, very closely and put this on as an agenda item for discussion and adoption. This would also ensure that all sections of Palm Desert would have active council person serving their interests equally. I would suggest that you can construct an ad hoc committee to look into adding the 5-district voting to the 22 election cycle. And with that, I will say thank you very much, and let's roll on to 21. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. And was that our sole speaker, Ms. Sanchez?
Yes, that concludes the public comments.
And do we have any requests for comment on agenda items?
Yes, for action calendar item number 9.
All right. And is that from Allied, or is it a different speaker?
It is Ms. Yvonne Delgadillo from Allied, yes.
Okay, very good. That brings us to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
I would have motion to approve with the exception of item number 6, where I would like to record my continued dissent. Thank you.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries on the consent calendar with the exception of item number 6, which is ordinance 1362, and that is a 4-1 vote with Councilmember Quintanilla voting no.
Thank you. We have no consent items held over, which brings us to item 8, a request for direction of a 1-year extension of contracts with Idea Peddler, contract number C37180, and CV Strategies, contract number C37060, to provide marketing services for fiscal year 2021-2022. Mr. Soul.
Good afternoon, evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I am Thomas Toll, your Tourism and Marketing Manager and Acting PIO. And you have before you a report seeking direction on staff's request to potentially extend the contracts of 2 marketing agencies currently engaged in supporting the city. As mentioned in the report, both the El Paseo Parking and Business Improvement District and the Marketing Committee voted in favor of this action, which would allow for the continuity of service at a time when our businesses especially need support from marketing efforts. Staff has been very pleased with the performance of both agencies throughout their contracts and would recommend authorizing these extensions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from council? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
I don't have any questions. I just have a couple of comments. I sit as a liaison on both of the boards mentioned, and I will tell you that all of the members absolutely support this decision. And this is an excellent staff report. Thank you so much. It was easy to understand and it truly made sense. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other? Yes.
No question, but simple comment. Greatly appreciated a spectacular report and agreed if it says no fiscal impact. And so that makes it pretty easy, especially if you hear there's overwhelming support from everyone involved. Thank you.
Shall I take that as a motion?
Yes, I motion to approve.
Move to approve the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 9 is consideration for approval to deliver a notice to terminate contract number HA34970 with Allied Real Estate Partners LLC, a California limited liability company, regarding vacant property owned by the authority known as APN 622370014. May we have the staff report?
Honorable Chairman and members of the Authority Board, Jessica Gonzalez with the Community Development Department. Before you is a staff report on the request being considered. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them. Ms. Yvonne Delgadillo with Allied RE has requested to speak under public comment for this item.
Could I just clarify this basic fact? When this was last before us, we voiced our sentiment that it was a last extension, a last chance to secure funding. But am I correct that the applicants final effort to secure funding has not yet actually been ruled upon, that they don't have a result because of the state's delay.
That is correct. The home funds that are trying to be secured by Allied RE were supposed to be delivered initially in May or June of 2020. We have subsequently from then extended 2 other times, and the recent or last extension did expire December 30th.
All right. Is there any indication of deficiency on Allied's part, or is this simply a case of the state changing its timetable?
It is part of the state's time change that they have extended the award, the announcement of the awards for home funds. The last communication was provided that announced that it would be at the end of this month, February.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we hear from Ms. Delgadillo? Yes, Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Ms. Gonzalez, I'm unclear. The extension that's being sought, you mentioned to the end of the month, but the staff report has a May 13th, 2021 date. What exact extension is being requested? To what date?
Actually, the request before you is to deliver a notice of termination.
No. Their request. What?
Allied RE's request is to actually extend it until they can secure not only the home funds, but also the tax credit funds, which are additional funding they will be securing. The submittal for that application for the tax credits, if awarded home funds, would be then submitted to tax credit on May 13th. The expected award of those funds would be sometime in August of this year.
So are they requesting an open-ended extension, or are they requesting an extension to August 31st, 21?
I would actually ask Allied on that and to comment and provide that deadline that they are asking, or the extension timeframe for that, because that would be, if they're not awarded the home funds in February or in a timely manner that they can submit in May, they may have to go to the September timeline for tax credits, and those don't get awarded until sometime in December, I believe, of 2021.
Okay, I'm getting the picture. And the staff report that you referenced, Ms. Gonzalez, indicates that staff's recommendation is to issue a notice to terminate the contract. I know we got an update. Is this still staff's recommendation?
I will defer that to my director.
We talked a lot about answering this question. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Ryan Sindel, your Director of Community Development. We tried to indicate in our updated memo that we're responding to what we've been hearing from the City Council about not tying up a piece of property with an infinite amount of extensions. It cannot be open-ended, but we would be willing to give this any shot of survival possible. But as Jessica indicated, home funds are necessary, then tax credits are necessary. We don't have a great answer for how long the developer needs.
Okay. The original agreement was entered into when? The very original one?
The original agreement was entered into in January of 2006, which provided a time frame, a 3-year time frame for them to secure funding. And then the 4 subsequent extensions have been granted.
I think it was 2016.
Yes, 2016, correct.
16, so we've been playing for 5 years. I heard you say that the current contract expired December 31st. So if we don't follow staff's original recommendation, then our option is not really to extend, but to enter into a new contract or somehow retroactively extend the contract that, as we sit here today, is null and void. It has expired. Is that accurate?
No. Our legal counsel has gone through and provided the exception to that existing contract would come from the authority board to continue an additional extension. The agreement requires that we actually provide a formal notice to terminate. So if it is not the authority board's desire to do that, then the option would be to alternately provide an extension.
Okay, so the contract has expired, but in order to completely terminate the agreement, we need to issue that notice.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions before we hear from Ms. Delgadillo?
I have a
Yes.
question. If the decision from council is to scrap the project and move forward in a new direction, will that new direction ensure that this project is still allocated for affordable housing?
Yes, this is a successor housing asset property. It must comply with that option.
That's what I suspected, but just wanted to confer and hear it out loud and be sure that residents know that we are asking these kinds of questions and want to be sure that they're informed that these kinds of scenarios are in mind and they're not just decisions that are made lightly.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez, would you please elevate Ms. Delgadillo so that she may present?
Delgadillo, are you there?
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Madam Mayor, and City Council. It's not the easiest conversation to have, and it was heartbreaking to hear the original recommendation that staff had made, but we come before you in hopes that you will consider at least waiting for the funding source that you had approved that we move forward on. Indeed, unfortunately, the pandemic has really affected just every timetable from 2020 through 2021. Like you guys, we are extremely frustrated with where we're at. We submitted that application January 10th, I believe, of 2020. As Jessica indicated, we were supposed to hear back from the results on May or June of 2020. Then they kept extending it through November, then by December, which was when the extensions came through. And even last week, we were calling them, and the latest information that we got was that they should be making announcements by the end of February. We've insistently called them. Some of the issues that HCD, which is the California Housing and Community Development Department, has faced is they've had a lot of turnover, and with the pandemic, they're working from home, and so that's been their response. As we indicated back then, we have been committed to this project for indeed over 5 years, or 5 years, as was pointed out momentarily. And there does come a point where we have to learn how to walk away, and we will do that if we're forced to. However, I think it would be unfair to all of us, including you, because many of you have been in part of this from the very beginning, including staff and the council and Madam Mayor, to not give ourselves the opportunity to hear back from HCD on what this award truly is. And so we are hoping that by February, and honestly, I don't know what to say because it's beyond our control. We wish we could just ask HCD, well, can you please give it now, given that they have so much funding that they are announcing. But those awards have still not been announced. The reason that we brought up the August deadline is because the critical piece of this project is being able to secure the home funds at this point, because it was not competitive enough for the 9% tax credits. And in order, those home funds only provide about half of the funding. And then the other half comes from the 4% tax credits, which is not competitive, but it's still an application process. And as Jessica indicated, and we provided in the letter, the state, in terms of the 4%, they require you to submit a full application. And in this case, we would need an announcement from HCD prior to May. The application would need to go in May so that the tax credit allocating agency could review that application in August. And if not, but again, I think right now, the only thing we're asking is that we wait to hear back from HCD on those funds. Because I can guarantee you that once those home funds are secured, everything else will fall into place. The critical piece has been that, and like other 9% projects in the state, and home funds, it's a competitive project that most projects take about at least 2 years. Unfortunately, this one, as we realized, has taken over 5, but that's all we're asking. And hopefully you guys will agree that too much time and resources has been invested in the project to just walk away before hearing what the final result has been. And honestly, I don't think that we could have had a more competitive application based on even the efforts that the city took in going and allocating the someone to go advocate for funding, and even the points that we had in the application. Based on the initial indication, it sounded like we had a competitive project, which is why we urge you to please consider not terminating it yet and waiting for that announcement.
Are there any questions of Ms. Delgadillo? Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. So to follow up on the point previously made, I want to be absolutely clear. You expect to have resolution by the end of February. So what you're really asking is that we not issue a notice of termination at least until that point, the end of February. Is that correct?
I would not, I would ask that we extend it for, I wouldn't say February. And the reason, that's the indication we've gotten from HCD. But previous to that, they had said November and then December, and now it's February. So I'm not sure if we should put a point or maybe say like May, because if we don't hear from May, then we can't even submit.
Well, Ms. Delgadillo, with respect, you're the one making the request here. What date are you looking for?
And again, I'm not sure I'm looking for a date. I'm just looking for that announcement piece. If we had to look at a date, I would ask that at least May of 2021. 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Delgadillo? Council discussion. Oh, was that a question?
Yeah, I think it is. Okay, so we talk about the rolling deadline that or promise of an answer that the state is giving you, which I'm sure is very frustrating to you. And so if you get, let's just do a hypothetical here so I can ask the question. In May, they tell you, okay, you've qualified and you're getting those funds. It's still a possibility by what you said, you won't get the funds you need. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, so once we get the home funds, we'll be able to apply for the 4% tax credits. The tax credits are not a competitive process. It's just a formal application that needs to be submitted, and then TCAC allocates it. Unlike the 9% that there are competitive and similar to the home, the 4% is it goes with like a bond. And so it's not necessarily competitive. We're assuming that those will be secured once we're able to secure the home funds.
Okay, but so what you're saying though, it's not necessarily competitive, does that mean they might say yes or they might say no?
The 4% you're asking?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
The 4%, to our knowledge, are not competitive. It's more of a formal application that needs to be submitted so that the state knows how much tax credits are going to be allocated. So it's a formal application process, but it's something, because you're dealing with bonds, it's something that's issued.
So everybody that fills out that application gets it?
Correct. In the state of California for now, yes. As long as
I'm a little disturbed because the answers have qualifiers on them. Just now it was for now they do, and it's not necessarily competitive. And you know how passionate I am about this project.
So right now, Councilwoman, I apologize. So it is not a competitive process. We have talked to the state and they have an allocation to secure. So we are assuming that once we get the home funds, that the 4% we will get. And again, I don't know how to, it's not all the projects that have been submitted in different states. It is a competitive process. In California, it's not.
Thank you. Discussion. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll start it off. So look, if this was the first time that we were being asked to give, or even the second time, or even the third time to give an extension with COVID and so forth, yeah, I mean, if somebody's trying, we want to help, and my inclination would be to say yes. It's not the case here. As I said, we've been dancing for 5 years, and it's been over and over again. Yeah, this will be the last extension. Trust us, and we have. And they come back to us and say, well, this happened and that happened. And I'll be very honest, I've lost confidence and credibility with Allied Real Estate partners. I think we need to make room for someone that will take over this project and build out affordable housing, which we need. I don't think Allied Real Estate, from what I've seen for 5 years now, has the capability of making this happen. So I would be in favor of staff's initial recommendation, which is to issue a notice of termination.
Councilmember Nestante.
Yes, if I could just add, and maybe there's something different here, but we have another affordable housing developer seeming to work in a much more timely fashion despite COVID. I don't want to mention names right now, but we do see other entities able to bring affordable housing on a more timely fashion. So I would concur.
Other thoughts, Councilmember Quintanilla?
I acknowledge that I have not been here for the duration of the project and the staff's work and that has gone into preparing their report and their recommendation. Just as I also feel that it's important to acknowledge that Ms. Delgadillo may have said that she's not sure of what may be factual in California for the time, knowing that timelines that she has been promised have been shifted, and we don't know how things may change from one day to the next. And that aside, I think that Mr. Stendel has said in his words that he would like to see this having a shot at survival. And I think that right now we're in the middle of February. I think that if we are looking to explore if it would even be funded, I think their last possible hallelujah would be to just give it until the end of February as the ultimate last effort out of respect for everything that's been moving. Ms. Delgadillo is not responsible for how the state has administered things. We have seen things shifted. We have seen how our constituents respond to us in terms of wanting vaccines, and those things are out of our control. So I think that we have full respect and understanding for the way that COGS may move a little slowly despite our best intents and efforts. And I would be in favor of allowing one final consideration until the end of February.
I agree that this is the wrong time to pull the plug. First, I want to acknowledge for members of the public listening that every single person on the council wants to see a successful affordable housing project on this site. It's a very, very key site. So this whole discussion is just about how to achieve that objective, not whether to achieve that objective. The council in the past has been unconvinced that this particular developer has what it takes to marshal funding. And so the last time the agreement was extended, it was to afford a last chance to marshal that funding. The only reason we're here is because of postponement by the state of deadlines. That doesn't tell us anything about this developer's capacity. It just tells us that the state is behind in the face of COVID. So I feel strongly that we should extend this through May to accomplish what we said we wanted to accomplish the last time this was before us, which was to give this developer a last chance to demonstrate the capacity to marshal the funding. We know that if we cut them loose, it is going to be years before we actually see something happen at this site, because we'll be starting from scratch. So if we're able to work with this developer, if they're able to work with these state's extended deadlines, that's preferable. I'm gonna have to go off camera very briefly, Mayor Pro Tem, but I'll be here, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you. So we're not here just because of COVID. You know, perhaps what we've learned is last time we said it was the last time, should have been the last time. And this isn't just a project for Palm Desert. This is a project for our region. This project would be serving not just those who are underserved financially, or who are those people that we normally go to with when we're talking about our low-income housing. This is for those community members, adult, developmentally challenged as well. We don't have anything like that in this whole region. This is for the whole valley. And we have pushed this along and pushed this along. And those of you who have heard me know I am passionate about this project. This is very special to me, very important to me, that we have people who have developmental challenges, who are adults, who are losing their parents, and where are they going to go? And this was to provide that place. And I'm just, it's, well, you know, end of February, but maybe end of March. Well, and then we'll kind of, we assume we're going to get it. I don't have the confidence. I hope somebody can talk me into it. I mean, Council Member Quintanilla says end of February. I could vote for that, but I just can't go any further. It's just, we have people who get projects through in the first round of these competitive bid processes or competitive funding processes. Over and over again, they do it. And this has gone on now, we're 5 years. We should be done. That should be built. So
could I make this suggestion? The end of February is 2 weeks away. So that is likely to accomplish nothing. So if there's to be a compromise here, I would ask at least through the end of March. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's already been a compromise, a 5-year compromise. I'm at the end of that road. You know, Mayor, you made a cogent point. You said that if we terminate this relationship, it could be years before something is built out. Well, I can kick myself because had we made that decision a year ago not to grant an extension, that project could be built up and running and housing the people that need that housing. I don't want to make that same mistake over and over and over again, which personally I have done by having trust and faith in this people. I'm not even convinced that the current delay is COVID related. I don't know that. And as I said earlier, I've lost confidence and credibility with this particular developer because they keep coming to us with different stories asking for more time. And as Councilmember Nastandi indicated, we have other affordable housing developers who are successful. So why is one successful and the other one constantly comes to us with an excuse of why they can't make it happen? I think because we want to create affordable housing, because we want to create this unique resource for those especially vulnerable population that really needs it, because we all want that, we need to say no to these guys. I'd like to make a motion to approve staff's original recommendation to deliver a notice of termination.
Is there a second?
I would second that motion.
Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Nay.
I'm sorry, did you say nay?
Correct, that's nay.
Mayor Kelly.
No.
The motion carries on a 3-2 vote with Councilmember Quintanilla voting no and Mayor Pro Tem Mayor Kelly voting no.
Thank you. We have no information items, no public hearing, which brings us to council member reports and requests for action. And in my rotation system, Councilmember Nastandi is up first.
I just have an observation. I'm very pleased to have been on El Paseo this past week and seeing all the outdoor dining guests and just the how do I say, excitement on El Paseo, you know, doing things safely, social distancing, people were wearing masks, and it just looks so vibrant on El Paseo, and just really proud of our city and all its efforts to do what we can for our businesses. So that's really all, just an observation.
Thank you. Councilmember Quintanilla.
Is going back to my notes. I'm a compulsive note taker and was trying to figure out what I've got where. I've had a lot of great meetings and found just a plethora of information. Very excited to see what's coming forward. For example, from Cal Cities, just learning about the future projects that Sunline has upcoming are phenomenal. With the Public Safety Committee, that was wonderful again to see some of the new laws that are coming into play and how we need to be responsive. So I look forward to providing a more detailed report of what Palm Desert needs to do to be more proactive with that. This week in particular, I found my pleasure, it was with the Art Commission and looking at the new covers for the electrical boxes and looking at the community's input and looking at what are places where we could add more sculptures and putting out the all call again for sculptors to put up at the roundabout. So for those that don't know, we're going to keep putting that out there. We want a great selection of pieces there, and it's open to anybody in the US, Mexico, and Canada 18 years of age or over. So with that broad all call, I can't wait to see the kinds of things that we'll have. And another thing that I found interesting was that with the committee, there was a discussion about politics politics in art, and how the places where art has the value of shaping a community and shaping the values, and the city leaving politics out of the art in order to be more inclusive. And I think that that kind of shaped the invocation for me today. And as we look at what's it going to take to move forward, we speak of unity, but what will that actually take? And looking at community engagement and surveys, and having the community have their voice heard with what kinds of types of art they would like to see, and looking at having interactive, engaged art, looking at piggybacking the Arts Commission events, for example, with the Wildflower Festival, and seeing if there's opportunities to have like press flowers and intergenerational activities that can be done on Zoom, and still having people enjoy wildflowers safely from home since they can't go out and gather. So it's been a great opportunity to learn with the community, and that's pretty much it for today.
Thank you. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Like all of my colleagues, I attended a variety of meetings. One that I want to bring to your attention very briefly is that CVAG did form a committee to address our relationship with Union Pacific and the lengthy and broad challenges that we have faced for so many years with them, and how they have frankly stood in the way of some of the goals and objectives, such as creating mass transportation for our festivals, Coachella and Stagecoach, where we had $6 million and had to give it back because of a lack of cooperation from Union Pacific. They're standing in the way of interchanges being built throughout the Coachella Valley, and so on and so forth. So we had our initial meeting. Folks, it's going to be a long run. There's not going to be a solution anytime soon, but we have to start somewhere, and that effort has begun, or is continuing in a more formal sense. I know there's been effort for years. That was the only meeting I want to bring to your attention. One, I don't know if it's a request for action, but let me bring it up to staff for consideration. Monterey, heading north, just approaching Fred Waring, if you can imagine where that is. A lot of people it's 3 lanes, and a lot of people make a right-hand turn lane. And that lane gets backed up because then somebody is sitting there not making a right-hand turn. And also, when College of the Desert is in session, there's a lot of students that cross. So you wait for them to cross, and then there's not enough time to make that right turn. So traffic is stacking up. With the new configuration of Monterey north of Fred Waring, kind of, there's that one turn coming out, and then it goes to 2 lanes because we're building CV Link. My thought is, and I'm not an expert, so my request, Randy, is that staff take a look at maybe creating a dedicated right turn lane on Monterey, just south of Fred Waring, northbound, if that makes sense.
I'm sure staff can follow up if they need clarification.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you. Quickly, Councilmember Jonathan, did you want to share what the name of that committee that with CVAG is?
Oh, he really didn't.
Oh, he didn't. Okay, never mind. Just kidding.
Why don't you, Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't want to steal the thunder. So of course, we all think for some reason we shouldn't be busy because so many other things have been canceled. I know we're all going to many, many meetings. And I did want to share that at CVAG and the Transportation Committee, we have we approved contracts for signal synchronization throughout our valley. And I know that has it gone to the exec committee yet? If it hasn't, you will see it, I know.
Later this month.
Okay, so we're excited about that. There's 2 phases, and it'll really be a tremendous asset for our entire valley. And the other thing is, and I think everyone will be happy to hear this, as we stand today, and this group that we are dealing with, South Star, the project managers for President's Plaza, they've been terrific. They've communicated with the community well. It appears they will begin construction April 7th.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Staff is going to share a PowerPoint, I believe, The city of Palm Desert was privileged to sponsor a virtual holiday event for the 7th Marine Regiment, with which we have a long-standing relationship. And they sent us this expression of thanks. And Lori, if you would simply move through the pages. The city of Palm Desert generously supported our Marines and their families during the holiday season. And we are being thanked for this generous support enjoyed by service members and their families. What follows is a few highlight pictures of masked merrymaking. So on behalf of all the MCCS marketing team, the Marine sailors and their families, we received this thank you. And of course, our support was to thank them for their service. Mr. City Manager, have you anything to share with us?
Not this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
That's perfectly okay. And hearing no objection, we will be adjourned.
Good evening, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Buenas noches.